Well, I'd like to thank the Denver Library for inviting us to make this presentation, as well as the theater for hosting such a beautiful venue. The logo you see up here on the screen is actually the logo of Northern Lights. It's been in existence for many years. It was designed by Carol Crossan, who won the design contest back in 1967. That sign was painted by Skip Wagner and is used in our 4th of July parades and at many of our events. So there's some history right off the bat on the first slide. Snowmobiling was in its infancy in the early 60s and mid-60s. As each local resident bought their snowmobile, the neighbors would try them out and found out how much fun they could have outdoors in the wintertime. As more and more sleds were purchased, these guys went out in the woods and just started to have a ball, quickly realizing that they needed to get organized so they could go out as a group, have trail-side campouts, cookouts, and so on, and invite tourists to come to the Northwoods to go snowmobiling. Northern Lights was formed in 1966. It was incorporated in 1967. Don Fancher, who most of you may know, Don from Fancher Kennels or from the patrol on the chain, became the very first president. You may recognize some of these names: Pete Bonkowski, Dick Brewster, John Lamont, Marty Ruth, Bill Gaffron, and Donna Sanger. Those are the folks that made up our first board. Membership was limited, if you can believe it. They limited it under 100 members. So there was a list of waiting list for people to join the club. They were called boosters. Outings were planned for most weekends, and people loved the idea of riding as far as they wanted to, or until they broke down, which was really quite regular. I apologize. I shouldn't. Okay, what's in a name? If you can just imagine the three-legged snow snakes, the penguins, three-legged snow stoppers, or three-puddle putt-putts. John Yonker, I thought of you. Marjorie Pesky was the daughter of Cy Williams. She was the one that came up with Northern Lights. She was also the commander at the American Legion. And she was also the gal that made the decision to put a scrapbook together to track the history of the club, which has really become an important piece of history at the Historical Museum. Over. Okay. Lots of events were created locally in support of snowmobiling and to create interest. 1966 to 72, the Hodag Marathon from Rhinelander to Three Lakes to Sugar Camp and back became a premier cross-country event. 1968 to 1971, World Championship races, summer races were held in the snowmobile park down Burnside. Local racing events such as the Three Lakes Sprints were also held in the wintertime. As they say, the first snowmobile race started the day the second machine was built. Racing became an important part in both a local tourist perspective and local business perspective. Club members were local business owners as well as residents. And that was the majority of our members. Members such as the Katursky brothers from Aero Marine, the Lamans from Shorewood and Watercraft, the Gunners from Jerry's Sport Shop, and I could go on. Everyone saw a need to develop a trail system to bring more tourism, to support the local businesses, and just get out and enjoy the trails. Fred Gates from Rhinelander and Walt Goldsworthy, who was a naturalist with the National Forest Service, spearheaded the development of the trail from the Three Lakes to Rhinelander. They secured backing from the St. Regis Paper Company, Boy Scouts of America, and many private landowners between Rhinelander and Three Lakes. The National Forest Service created the Kimball Creek Trail. And I'll show you a map of that Kimball here in a little bit. It doesn't look anything like it does today. Club members all worked hard to tie the trails together into one trail system connecting with other clubs. One of the first trails was between Three Lakes and Eagle River, which actually remains the busiest trail in the Three Lakes trail system. This is the first trail map in existence that Northern Lights published back in the late 60s. A gentleman by the name of Dan Tarzinski had this rolled up in a tube, waiting for the day that could be put in the museum. When Dan and I pulled the map out, it almost disintegrated in our hands. Fortunately, my uncle was very adept at digitalizing or remastering that old map. So it's still in existence today. It hangs in the Historical Society Museum, and it's great to look back on. Many of those trails that are shown on the map are still in existence, or have changed just slightly. Unfortunately, this slide didn't come out real well, but this map was published several years later with many more trails on it. And as we developed the map, we were able to sell ads to get more revenue in to pay for the printing and help with trail maintenance. This is actually all before trail grooming started. This is the map of the Kimball Creek Trail as it was originally developed. It was a dead-end trail up in Highway 70, east of Eagle River. It started here at Three Lakes, and it went down Gensler Road, across the creek, across Highway 32, where there was a parking lot, which is still in existence today. Went through some of the bogs that are in the lower Kimball Trail that exist today, and then hooked up with what is now the upper Kimball. Some of the trails up there were called the Figure 8 trails. There was also a pit stop at Sheltered Valley. People could go in, warm up, and watch people tumble down the ski hills. It was quite entertaining. This was the layout for the trail from Rhinelander to Three Lakes. Again, Fred Gates and Walt Goldsworthy laid that out. The article in the Old Chamber of Commerce publication that I have states that all of the main resorts were now able to remain open in the winter months and promoted snowmobiling as a reason to come to the Northwoods. Even in this early stage, the article clearly states, ask before you enter. The first impression will be what people remember you for years to come. Now we'll get into grooming. This was Northern Lights' first groomer. It was called the Unimog. If you look at the drag behind it, it's very primitive compared to the drags of today. The Unimog was basically a skid steer type operation, similar to what you see on construction sites today, but nowhere near as reliable. Jerry Guttner was the president at the time, and he hired Bob Miller and paid $30 a week to groom. I'm not sure how much grooming they got done in between all the repairs. This is the first Tucker picture of Jerry Guttner. These early Tuckers were pretty rough riding. They were kind of like a buckboard. They had metal cleats that really vibrated like crazy. They had a tendency to break, and with all the vibration, the machine had a high tendency of breakdowns. Here's a couple more slides of more recent Tuckers. It wasn't until 1981 that Dan Terzinski, who was the trail boss of Northern Lights at the time, his wife was Sis, was president. Dan got together with Rudy Spies from Headwaters, which is now Snow Eagles, and decided to make a hookup at the north end of the Kimball Creek Trail. So we had a link between Eagle River and Three Lakes, going all the way up to Kimball and then all the way down to Highway 70. It was a huge benefit to both clubs. People could now ride through Eagle River, do a nice big loop down and around It benefited businesses in both communities. All of those offshoot trails on the Kibble map that we saw were pretty much gone by that time. We owe Dan Trzynski a great debt of gratitude for all the work that he's done since the early 1970s. When he was here, he was president of Northern Lights, his wife was president, he was trail boss of Three Lakes Trails in later years. As you can probably tell by now, Three Lakes is very deep in snowmobile history. In addition to the trail development, we have the first world champion, George Kinsler. He was a charter member of Northern Lights. Dwayne Tillman operated a snowmobile dealership here in town and had one of the first touring businesses anywhere around. He would rent sleds to tourists, take them out to the Nicolet at the trailside campout or cookout, and then leave them back. And I'm sure there were lots of wild stories after those rides. Here's George. And we have a lot of George's memorabilia in the Historical Society Museum. He included his trophy, his bibs, and a lot of photos from the different races that he was in. Here's a picture of George coming through, or leaving the pit stop of the Hodag Marathon. Behind him is the winery. At the time, it was the depot, the train depot. Three Lakes is also home, or was also home, to Snowblower magazine. Offices were in the building just north of the Old Irish Waters restaurant on Highway 45. The magazine is still in production today. The Sheldon family is the one that started the magazine. They were also charter members of the club. NLSC and the Lions Club hosted the annual Winter Championship Summer Races in the Snowmobile Park, now known as Don Burnside. I don't know if many of you know that the park was originally purchased with snowmobile funds back in the day. You know, the area here is well known for racing. We have the World Championship race up in Eagle River. Many racing events were held here in Three Lakes and Rhinelander as well. It was important to both local businesses as well as manufacturers. Manufacturers supported these events with big, huge semi-trailers, with race teams, and they did a lot of research and development as part of those races. This is the original 1967 program for the Hodag Marathon. It was given to me by Greg Olszewski from Greg's Auto. He held it near and dear. He raced in that marathon many times. And that race also brought some career racers such as Bob Eastman and Stan Buck Hayes from Grandin. George Kinsler also raced here many times. These are some just neat photos that we were able to find. The picture you're looking at now is showing the building that we're in, Three Lakes Theater. This was the 1968 marathon. As you can tell, there's a lot of snow on the road. Well, here we are, right down Main Street, Superior. The town hauled snow in, and the racers came right downtown. It was quite a sight to see. The pit stop was at the depot, and then they raced further north on 45 up to Rice Lake Road and out on the Thunder.
What year was that?
1968.
68, thanks. This picture shows pit crews swarming the racer and the race machines. they're trying to fill that thing up and check over to see if there are any repairs to be made. You can tell the budget of some of these race crews. This one is not so hot. They've got a can of gas, and everybody's just in their own snowmobile garb. The race teams, most race teams had semis with hand pumps for fuel, with dedicated technicians to get on their sleds and get that thing back on track as quickly as possible. Here we are in Three Lakes in the summertime. Racers on the starting line at the Summer World Championships. As you see, many of their machines have their hoods removed. That's to keep them cool, at least as cool as they could. We've got a number of articles that cite different spectator numbers. In this case, it says 6,000 snowmobile races in Three Lakes. That's a lot of people. I've got one article that says 5,000, another one that says 7, but all be the same. The crowds were huge. Everybody had a great time. Northern Lights had a truck wagon out there that sold food and donated the money to the Lions Club. Here they come down the track. Another event hosted by Northern Lights were the snowmobile sprints in February. Again, held in the snowmobile park. There was actually a Le Mans type track set up there to host the marathon, and I believe that was used in future events as well. It was pretty neat. Tom and I tried riding that a couple of different times when we were kids. And here's the program again for the snowmobile sprints in '73. Now we'll get a little bit into more of the historical aspect of some of the more positive things the club did. 1969, Northern Lights was invited, along with 4 other clubs, to talk about and discuss the possibility of creating a governing organization. Proud to say that we were one of the founding clubs of the Association of Wisconsin Snowmobile Clubs, AWSC. Our very own Dick Brewster, who was vice president of Northern Lights, became vice president of the AWSC. He's on the right-hand side up there. No relation to him. Northern Lights and Three Lakes was also the host of one of the very first AWSC conventions. As you can see, it was held at the Alpine Motor Inn, which was United Village. If anybody can see, I'm not sure, it looks like this is facing east. The building immediately behind that sign is where Skip Wagner lives, I believe. And off to the right, it looks like a big warehouse. Does anybody know what that might be? As you can tell, back in the 60s, snowmobile safety was a concern even then. It was a big topic at the convention and continues to be a topic. While hosting the convention, Don Fancher's wife at the time, Donnie, I believe, and Sue Rulo met and guided many of the rides that were taking place that weekend. This is the emblem of the AWSC. United we trail, divided we fail. And that rings true every day. By the time 1984 came around, we had some bad snow years. Membership was on the downturn. Snowmobiles became to be more expensive. Less participation locally by club members. The decision was made to end the grooming activities here in Three Lakes by the club. They could not do it as a sole grooming operation. Dan Trzynski and his wife thanked everybody, all the business people in town, and suggested a new club be formed to do strictly grooming operations. That year, in 1984, over 800 volunteer hours were spent maintaining 120 miles of trail. So with that, all the business leaders in town got together. John Lamont, I believe, headed that up, and Three Lakes Trails was created, and continued to groom and maintain trails in Three Lakes, doing an outstanding job year after year. In our little local paper outlining what remember the Badger games in the state of Wisconsin. They were held down in the Wausau, Merrill area. They had a torch run that actually came through 3 lakes. And Northern Lights sponsored that in 1992. Passing by the chamber office, you can see behind the torch many of the old vintage sleds that participated. It was pretty neat. So currently, Northern Lights functions as a social club as well as a fundraiser for Three Lakes Trails. Many of our activities include the annual Christmas party fundraiser. This year we raised in excess of $4,000 thanks to the hard work of Sue Frank, Bonnie Lamb, and our whole Christmas party. We plan activities to keep snowmobilers interested in making Three Lakes their riding destination. It's important to keep people coming here, spend money here in town, support the local businesses. Our overnight rides are to great locations with club-sponsored amenities, and we have weekly and daily rides which keep our local residents active, and we also attract tourists that don't know the area, would like to learn where to go, and meet people locally from the area. Our fundraising activities this year for the Three Lakes Bull River Trails was pretty successful. We raised just $16,000 for Three Lakes Trails this year, so great job. Our membership is way up compared to 5 years ago. About 3 years ago, the AWSC, along with the DNR, came to an agreement where there would be a trail pass for all snowmobiles. The trail pass would cost $30 per snowmobile. If you belong to an AWSC-sponsored club like Northern Lights, your trail pass will only be $10. So we put the wheels in motion pretty quick and provided the ability to join online and use PayPal to pay for the membership. Our membership's shot from 125 up to 450, making us the 4th largest snowmobile club in the state of Wisconsin. It also helps keep the money here in town for Three Lakes Trails to do their job. This is a group on one of our overnight rides, out having a good time. There's a raffle that's held every year called Ride with Pride, and I think this year it's going to be changed, but Trackside donates the snowmobile you see here to be raffled off, and there's some other prizes, but it benefits Three Lakes, Eagle River, and Conover. So big thanks to Trackside for the donation, and we've raised over $5,000 in raffle ticket sales this year for Three Lakes Trails. So thank Trackside. Just a dinner that we had on one of our rides last year. Good time. We have our annual wing roast held out by Bailey Lake Horse Parking Lot by Shelter Valley. It's an annual event held on President's Day weekend on a Sunday. This year we had the best turnout that we've ever had, received over $800 in donations. And all riders that pass by the wing roast are welcome to stop and enjoy a roast of hot dog or marshmallow and just enjoy the camaraderie of the snowmobile. Another shot of the wing roast. A few characters. On some of our overnight rides, they always prove to be an adventure in some form. This happens to be Sue Frank. We're on our way to Ashland and got caught in a blizzard. Didn't get there until 11 o'clock at night after leaving here about 7:30 in the morning. You can see your sled's pretty well packed full of snow. It was a great adventure, though. A lot of stories came out of that trip. We participated in the 4th of July parade. It's always a great event. Keep supporting that every year. These are the patches that the club has utilized over the years. The AWSC first one, that was the very first patch they had. This is DNR Safety, the original Northern Lights patch. Booster, and then the current AWS seats. Anybody have any questions? Great. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you all for coming tonight. I want to thank the Center for the Arts and the Denver Library for providing this, I guess for a better word, forum. Pass out some information and get some feedback possibly. As April said, I am with the 3 Lakes Nicolet ATV Club, and there's our logo there. Thank you very much. And we've been having a lot of fun with the club. We got the club together in 2012, and it took a lot of hours, a lot of time, a lot of work. There were a lot of late night clandestine meetings over at Cindy's Diner. If you drove by at 7 o'clock at night and saw a dozen vehicles there, you were wondering what the heck is going on in Cindy's. We never opened this late, but that's kind of where the birth of this club came from, and we thank them for allowing to have the early meetings there. It really certainly helped us out, and to form our club and to move forward like we have. And we've moved pretty far in a very short time. I believe the ordinance was passed to, one of the big projects was getting access and getting trails and routes. And to find trails space available in our area in the summertime really became a problem, because due to the chain of lakes and the wetlands that we have, both a blessing and, as far as we were concerned, a curse, where are we going to go with all this open water and all this wet ground? So we kind of reverted back to, well, let's open up some roads, get some road routes, and then we'll get some trail connectors. And it all came together very well. The town as itself was very receptive of it. You kind of have to laugh. I mean, it was really only a few, 7 years ago that we started this. And 7 years ago, if you put up on a marquee that you were having a meeting about the ATV club, people would be standing out on the street to hear what was being said. There was a lot of interest, both a lot of pros, but a lot of cons. They've all been thrown around, but fortunately it all turned out like it did, and I think it's a very good environment. And what it really does is afford you guys and everybody else out there just another form of recreation. With that being said, our club it's a strong club. We're over 350 members currently, which is one of the largest clubs in the state. Also, we share that with the Northern Lights, so that's a good thing. When we started this, there weren't a lot of other clubs in the area, so we got approached by other townships, and we had town chairmen calling us and say, hey, can you come and, what's it going to take to get our roads open up to ATV routes? So for a while there, it seemed like I was going to a public meeting at least one night a week. And at one time, we were involved and responsible for road routes and some trails in 3 counties, 9 townships. And so there was a lot of work. And we've got it all done. And in the last couple of years, there's been a few more local clubs that formed. Sugar Camp has formed a club. Rhinelander has formed a club. Eagle River has formed their club. And it's really taken a lot of our duties away so we can get back to ATVing and UTVing more. So again, everybody's doing a great job with that. Road routes versus trails, we would love to have more trails. We have we have a small list of connecting trails that we have now, from one road route to another. But again, in our area, with the wetlands and the lakes and everything else that we have in all of the private property we have, it's very hard to get a landowner to commit to doing something like that. Just an example, even for wintertime use, I went to the Forest Service and we looked at possibly using what we call the South Kimball Trail to Hiles as a wintertime ATV route to see if the snowmobiles and ATVs could coexist in wintertime. Now, they're getting along in other parts of the state, so we figured, why not here? Well, as luck would have it, the trails cut through the portion of the Nicolet are, I believe they're 10 feet wide, and we had a couple meetings with the forestry, and they were all good to go, and then a forester came up from the Leona district to one of our meetings and was telling me that, well, this isn't going to work. These trails for two side-by-sides, you go side-by-side, it needs to be 16 feet wide. And so I took the local forester out. We went for a ride from Three Lakes to Hiles, and we kind of counted the trees, and there were about 800 trees that had to be cut down if that was going to happen. And what a lot of you probably don't know is that when you cut a tree down in the forest now, in the national forest, you have to compensate the national forest in dollar figures. So you do the math, that would have been a very expensive trail for wintertime ATV use. So we tabled that project. But we've got lots of other ones going on, which we'll get to down the road here a little bit. History of the club, again, when we get back to things that we provide and discussions that were had, and I do believe we do have an impact on the local economy. We have one sports dealer in town, Sportsman Service Center, and before the advent of the ATV trails and routes in Three Lakes, they laid people off in the spring and in the fall in their shoulder seasons. And it's been my understanding in the last 5 years that they haven't had to lay anybody off. So that in itself, we feel, is an economical impact, and a good economical impact. So, we're seeing a lot more ATVs, UTVs out there. People are getting out there and enjoying the recreation. There are people now, you'll start seeing them now in the summertime that drive their ATVs, UTVs to the grocery stores, they drive to the liquor store, drive to the restaurants, and we're very fortunate that we can do that here. Events. We have a lot of fun things that go on in the present life here. We just finished up one of our really fun events we have. We call it a slush run. And it's typically the week after the snowmobile trails close. And how that came about was during our first year or two of operation, we had a lot of great local businesses that were supporters of the club that we couldn't access. A fine example would be Bonnie's Lakeside on Highway 32. Before Highway 32 got open, there was no way you could take your ATV, UTV, and go to Bonnie's. Well, in the spring, when we had the slush run, we utilized lakes, we utilized boat landings, we used little portions of little tiny snowmobile trail connections, and we got to places. We got to Bonnie's, we got to Mollyville, we got around. We had a great time. And typically what we do, it's not just, we wanted to make it more than just a poker run. So we include 3 or 4 games that you play that involve your ATV, UTV throughout the day, and people just love it. We had our one that just finished up here a couple of weeks ago. We had about 145 people here, and there was well over 115 machines, I think, that were here. And for our club, we raised $2,500. So I mean, it was a good time. It was a lot of fun and well worth doing. Other events we have. Let's see. We have our rendezvous, and that's out at Snowmobile Park. It's out where the fireworks are, and that's typically around the last weekend in July. And how that started out is we wanted to have an event and initially, we were going to call it Meet Your Neighbor in His ATV, and go figure. But what it was to introduce people that weren't familiar with ATVs, UTVs, and, come out there and see what these can do. And what we do, we set up an obstacle course with all kinds of weird things, log piles and tire piles and wood chip piles and culverts, and we even have a couple of watercraft out there. We've got a great big 20-foot fiberglass boat flipped over, and you have to drive up over that, and and that's the obstacle course. And then we have a typical a barrel race. It's a 3-barrel, like a rodeo, like the cowboys do. You race around the barrels with your ATV or UTV. And we have a drag race section. And then, again, I still don't know how this happened, but the park board and the town board let us put a mud pit in out there. So we have a mud pit out there that we get to crash and splash through and throw mud around. So it's a lot of fun. And it's typically the last Saturday in July. So if you're interested, stop out. We'll be there. Excuse me. We participate in the 4th of July parade. We have a strong showing. We usually have anywhere from 25 to 50 pieces of equipment in that parade. Throw out a lot of candy. Another thing we do, and that'll be coming up soon here, is Memorial Day weekend. We get the club out and we pick up garbage on the first Saturday or on the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend. And the first year that our road routes were open, we kind of did that as a gesture to make people aware, because a lot of our summertime residents are coming back and they weren't aware of what was happening with the ATV business over the wintertime. And we wanted them to see ATVs out there, be aware they're going to be on your roads, but we're out there doing a good thing. We're picking up the garbage off the side of the road. So something that we've done that, I believe, 6 or 7 years in a row also. So something we enjoy and something that, give a little back to the town. So future, we've got a lot of things going on with trails. We've got trying to form trails, because trails are where it's at, and people just don't want to ride on the roads. But it's okay if you need to make a connection. But we don't want to be on the roads. But right now we have to be on the roads. But we're looking at with the Forest Service again. The Kimmel Trail that Jim related to is we're looking at making it so roughly a 25-mile connection from here to Alba. So that's underway. It's been underway with the Forest Service for about 3 years, and I believe we probably have another 3 years worth of work on that. It's a long process. We're working with the Off-Road Council and the Wisconsin Department of Transportation on getting connected to Crandon via old Highway 8 on the north end of present Highway 8 from Crandon to Monaco, and then from Monaco to 3 Lakes. So we've got a lot of projects going on, a lot of things happening. We're getting back to being able to get to Bonnie's. We're very fortunate in the fact that we as ATVers, UTVers, is that we have a very, very strong statewide association as Wisconsin ATV Association. And we were discussing some problems that we had with them, like accessibility. All the people that live off of Highway 32, whether it be on Bunkowski Road or down Cessna Lane or Golf Course Loop, or whatever, their roads were opened up for ATV routes, but all they could do is drive up and down their roads. We were fortunate enough that Highway 32 from the north end of town here all the way to Golf Course Loop is a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. We talked to the guys at WAPA, we talked to a couple of legislators down in the southern part of the state, and a bill was penned that's allowing ATVs to use state and federal highways as long as where the speed was posted less than 35 miles an hour. So that is how that opening of Highway 32 happened. And if you've noticed, or maybe you haven't noticed, but when you get to Jake's on Golf Course Loop, you have to take a left, you have to take Golf Course Loop around, and then come out by the Northern Air Bridge. That was another issue that we had, was down bridges. So, again, we go back to WACFA, we go back to the same guys that wrote the Highway 30, or the 35 mile an hour speed limit bill, and ask them, can you help facilitate this, getting us a bill and a law passed that we can cross these bridges when there's no other form of connection being able to be made. These guys got together, 6 months later, the law's passed, now we can cross these bridges. It's my best knowledge that there's 6 bridge crossings in the state, and we're responsible for 4 of them. So we have the Highway 32 bridge by the Northern Air, Highway 45 bridge by Sportsman Service Center. We have the little, I believe it's probably Wolf River Bridge right in Hiles. And then we have one over on Highway 55. So, you know, it's fortunate that the bill fit right into our hands and into our plan and helped us to develop these routes and make them safe and make them viable so people can get from Forest County to Three Lakes. There is a major trail system that runs through Forest County over there. It's called the Nicolet Trail. And it's a multi-use trail. It's in wintertime, it's a snowmobile trail, and in summertime, it's an ATV, UTV, biking, hiking trail. And, you know, we're getting people out of that area. We're getting people to come off that trail to come to town. I also, I had the Facebook page for the club, the Three Lakes Nicolet ATV Facebook page, so if you want any more information about the club, you can find it there. And I get contacted all the time. In the summertime, it's at least once a week about people wanting to know, how do we get to Three Lakes? And it's very easy to tell them. And they get here and they can't believe it's this easy. So, with that being said, again, I think we've done a lot of work in a short time. And I hope that, you know, and I know the people that are out there riding are enjoying themselves. And if for some reason, if you don't have an ATV or a UTV and you want to try, or just even see what they're all about, you know, come on out to one of our events. We're usually in the paper the week before, so you know, if nothing else, if you're going to see me there, come over and talk to me. Hey, Mark, you know, we're at the thing at the Center for the Arts. You know, can we take a ride on yours or whatever? And I would say, sure, go right ahead. But I think that's about all I have. It's really kind of funny how it does. If you sit here and listen to Jim talk about the history of the Northern Lights and all the problems and the obstacles and things that they've crossed, you know, we are paralleling that. I mean, we're doing a lot of those same things. We have a lot of great events. We have a lot of great people. We have a lot of great members. And, you know, we have a lot of great businesses that are here to Three Lakes to support. So, I think that will probably pretty much do what I've got on my list of things to talk about. Are there any questions? Yes?
Have they resolved the issue on Highway 55, like on Scotty Road and also, you know, you get shelter out there?
Yes.
Is that legal now?
It's been legal. What happened with it? They got back and it sat on the Forest County Highway Commissioner's desk, and he never wrote the order for the guys to go out and sign. So yes, that's one of the bridges we got taken care of, and they just have to get out there and sign it. And if they don't sign it, we'll go sign it. We'll be ready for this season. Okay. Anything else? All right. Well, I want to thank you guys for coming. We want to thank the